Hi, everyone, and welcome to our weekly painting webinar. Today is Friday, April 2nd, 2021. I just can't believe it, but we're here. Thank you. Posing Painters Paintings. So that's what we're going to do today. We're excited. And we want to talk about a few things about self-portraiture, why we consider it so important, concept versus craft, why this assignment or collection to us, it's possibly on the top 3 of assignments that we've done so far. We've done 12, but we want to just connect all these points and things and make sure that we congratulate you for joining. And we know that some people registered and are going to watch later, but we're going to go ahead and start. And we put a lot of images on the shared folder. Some of her paintings, some of photographs of her, and by her we mean Pauline Bodie, which is essentially the reason why we're doing this assignment. And we'll talk a little bit more during the webinar about her and her work and see if we can find out more things. So thanks, Jen, for being there. How are you, love?
I'm great. I'm happy to be here. Thank you for having me, everybody.
That's exciting. So we have, okay, yeah. So we have, I'm going to send you a few links and a few notes so we can sort of like work together and discover more things about this amazing painter that we didn't know about. But let's just go ahead and and thanks. Laura, thanks for your comment, because one of the things that, and you know, you were on our thoughts because I know that you like to play with composition in your paintings. So when we saw that you registered, we were super excited because I know that this will feel interesting to you. Anyhow, so let's just briefly talk about the mechanics of the beginning of the webinar, which is talk about format and composition. And then we're going to delve into concept. I just want to make sure, we want to make sure that we explain and articulate why this is a very important assignment, and this will become one of the most, hopefully, important or interesting or strange, but in a good way, paintings of the year so far. I'm using 12 by 16 format. We define format in 3 ways: the size of the area that you're going to paint, the shape, if it's square, rectangular, oval, circle, or a combination of a few of those or different shapes. And finally, orientation. So unless it's a square or circle, the orientation is important: vertical or portrait, horizontal or landscape. We're not even laying a line in here, and we're already making artistic decisions. So from the moment you choose your image to the way you envision the format, all those things are part of the painting process, and we don't even have a brush and paint on our palette. So very important to think about those things. I was reflecting on it yesterday. I was inspired by the images, so we highly encourage you to see the images in the folder, the shared image folder. It was also good to see a couple of things about her life and her work, not only her body of work, her paintings, and also try to unpack what was different about her compared to other artists that were taking pictures or posing in front of paintings. But yeah, I just decided to play a little bit. um I love two things. I love babushka dolls conceptually. There's always one inside of another, and we talked about the idea of Easter eggs and the concept of hiding tiny messages inside of things, inside of our stories. So the combination of the babushka and the Easter egg inspired me to just play with the idea of the self-portrait blindfolded, which is the last or the latest self-portrait we did, and then just hide the rest of the features that are showing on the self-portrait and show the ones that are hiding on the self-portrait. I thought it would be interesting to do this idea of revealing and hiding, and at the same time stay true to the concept of posing somehow and with a painting. So the copy today at the Kinko's that I go to, I guess the toner, the red toner or the magenta toner was not very good, and everything has a yellow cast. And sometimes I love when images get processed or damaged or weird. There's something really random about it. So I just have the actual painting and see, I'm gonna decide if I want to do something like that or if I want to keep it like yellow. I love this almost old varnish layer on top of the photograph. So there's always something interesting about that. So depending on your format, we have to retrofit our image onto the format. So that's going to be our challenge. And but what I'm going to do is work on alignment, because two of the most important things at this stage, after we talked about the format, the three categories, the size, the shape, and the orientation. Two of the most important things are the focal points and the movement. I should say perhaps the movement first and then the focal points. So movement is how much space you leave between focal points and the edges of your format. And yay, I'm so excited because I lost it. Oh, no, I didn't. Sorry. I get so clumsy sometimes. I have a yardstick. It's been weeks. It's been 13 months, but it is here. So I have a yardstick and I'm just going to use the yardstick. I don't know if that, is this working or what? Maybe I'm just being a little bit. So I'm going to use a yardstick and I'm going to translate the lines more or less. This is the line on top of the head. I don't have to be accurate, but this allows me to, maybe I should lower this a little bit. Never mind. I'm just going to interpret the space. I have a little bit of a gap down here. I'm going to interpret the space. But yeah, I just wanted to bring a few horizontal alignments. And one of the things that I do to facilitate the translation, the retrofitting, the reformatting of the image is make a copy that has similar proportions or size as the format. And that way I can just do the find the difference kind of comparison. Okay, so I am just gonna go ahead and do this. All right, I'm just gonna do this. Potato shapes first. Potato shapes are silhouettes that tell us more or less the shapes in our painting that how they occupy our format. So I'm not going to do any structural lines. I did one structural line right here, but I'm not going to. So this is a little bit closer. I'm just going to do this hand. Okay, and then here we go. So, all right. This is my first potato shape. And I stopped because I'm not going to get caught up with exactly the alignment or proportion, because what's important here is to find out how this potato shape, which is the broader focal point of my composition, how it fits the format. This is exactly what I'm looking at and why I do this. So what I'm gonna do actually, since I have the yardstick, I am going to, I'm gonna use the yardstick, and I'm actually going to, yeah, I think that's good. I'm gonna measure things from one single vertical side. I think I just got the right, yeah, I just got the right. Maybe this is a little bit closer. So I'm just gonna measure this, and I need to shift this a tad. So if I shift this a tad, then this is 9. So this already, it's a little bit less. So which makes sense because I didn't have enough space for the hand. So I'm working essentially right now. So let me see. I'm working on shifting my silhouette. I'm not doing any structural lines or anything like that. Just shifting my silhouette. Yeah, I think that's okay. It doesn't have to be super perfect, but yeah, I'm doing that. Alignment here is okay, holding, and the knuckles go in a tad more. Okay, I was just happy about that. Okay, so I did a few tests with composition. I just wanted to, on the photograph, I wanted to play with different orientations. I wanted to play with how much I would reveal and how much I would hide. I used two hands. I used a hand underneath. So I did, I reclined, whoops, or put weight on one hand and try to create more of an angle. So this is the most well-studied composition that I ended up selecting, obviously, just because I felt like the combination of everything worked for me. Um, but it just depends on what you want to capture. Um, Sarah Jennings, you uploaded something spectacular. I love that image. So yeah, anyhow, so this is a very good assignment, if you ask me. I know we painted swallows and flowers, and this feels like, oh, another self-portrait. So I get that it could feel a little bit confronting, but precisely because of it, it's so good. So again, we're going to commend you for joining and doing this, because this is the type of topic subject that is conducive of growth as artists, not only technically, obviously, but also about our language and our motives. Okay, I'm going to do the structural lines. The first one clearly is the painting. So what I'm going to do is start splitting the main silhouette into smaller notes. There's a little bit of a skewed aspect right here that I like. So I'm just going to skew the format. There's something cool about this distortion. Okay, this is my first structural line. So I go from potato shapes, and I spend some time with that stage doing two main things: scaffolding, building the scaffolding first, the top, how tall, how wide, then putting the main potato shape on it. And then after that, shifting that silhouette a little bit. And now I'm doing the structural line. So there are different steps within the first steps, if you will. Um, I try not to leave anything without reflecting on it or bringing a criteria, because otherwise it's just complete randomness. And I just feel like I enjoy finding reasons to make artistic decisions. Let's put it this way. Okay, so I think then what? So I'm just going to move to parts of the portrait. Hairline, that's a main structural line, structural, yeah, element. And then the ear. Orientation of the face, eyebrows first. I'm gonna go really quickly here. Eyebrows first. Maybe this is to be a little bit higher. So always be open to, yeah, definitely. Always be open to make changes. We feel very possessive about our own, the artistic remains, I should say. And we think like we're generous and flexible, but we're not. In fact, we have a hard time redoing things. One of the things we talked about last night is the beautiful thing of being an artist is that we constantly create new things. So there's this idea of doing something for the very first time. That's possibly what I used last night. Doing something for the very first time, every time. How privileged are we that we can do that? You know, there's a sense of freedom about starting something new. It feels like our lives are sometimes the sensation of feeling stuck with something. So I feel like one of the reasons why creating it's so powerful and healing is that we have we create opportunities to start things, brand new things from yeah, from scratch, from the beginning. We always have the opportunity to create new beginnings. And when I read that somewhere, I just thought, you know what, this is so good, because when we are involved with the practice, we don't think about these concepts or ideas. But after thinking or reading about it, I realized that this is one of the reasons why we feel like this is not only a refuge, but a cool place that we have in our lives, just because we can start things every single time we paint, brand new things. Anyhow, so I'm just going about the details inside of the face. I'm sort of like speeding up the process of keystone. I didn't do a keystone. I'd rather, what I did was I did an axis line, vertical and horizontal, the split between where I think the middle of the face is vertically and the eye level is. I had to raise the eyes. They were too low. Don't feel, this is still, I mean, I have a bigger forehead, but just gonna leave it like that. I know that it's gonna change a lot. Okay, so I think the rest feels a little bit simpler. So I'm just gonna do the sleeve. That's another structural line. So I did structural lines, and I did structural lines inside of this part of the portrait, and then details. So I'm following different speeds at the same time, but and also I did shading. So I'm kind of like jamming different steps. And what I'm gonna do, which is what I love about this concept, is the portrait inside of the portrait. Okay, so here we go. I will simplify, obviously. So potato shape, structural lines really quickly. And I always talk about how beautiful it is to see a level of distortion and imperfection in our work. There's something really genuine. And every time I see a confident painting or a painting that looks confident, I feel empowered to do the same or take my work less seriously. Because I feel like the fact that we are so anxious sometimes about our own work, it's a reflection of taking the work way too seriously. Okay, so I have this draft inside of the format, which I love. And then I'm just gonna do the hand. So I have, in fact, to me, I see three portraits here. So my face, the face inside of the painting, and I consider hands to be very expressive parts of our bodies. So I'm just gonna try to do the potato shape of the hand first. I'm not gonna worry too much about proportions because I'll just do this later. So I'll pretend that these are mittens. I'm not gonna do the fingers yet. Okay, good. And then there's the sweatshirt on the other side, and there's darkness. So another idea, or and then there's this. It's a little bit less. Okay, so is how to treat the background, and I think in this case. There's a lot going on. Obviously, I have another painting, so maybe I could do the painting behind the sweatshirt. This could be a good idea, actually. Maybe the easel. But I'm going to treat the background very uniform. I'll decide if I want to make it very flat or, yeah. Okay, so in regards to shading, this is a little bit darker. I'm going to do a slight shading. And then I'll just continue building. All right. Good. And the rest, yeah, I'm not gonna do the door or the window just because I have so many focal points. I'm just gonna do a mushy, muddy background, maybe darker, because I had the light, artificial light in front of me, and that makes everything a little bit, a lot lighter. So I'm just gonna treat the rest in a very dark way. And I think I am ready to wash. And I'm glad that even though I had two portraits, and even though when we do portraits, I spend almost like 45 to 50 minutes in one single during the sketch. With this, I just want to move forward and have more time to paint. And I'm looking around and to talk and to prep the palette because I haven't prepped it because I didn't have time. So yeah, I was just mentioning yesterday three things. Well, number one, something that I didn't mention yesterday, but I did include in the presentation, in the video presentation and podcast, we're fancy now, is the fact that we consider self-portraiture a very important subject within portraiture. And for several reasons. One is because it's an opportunity to have a model that's unique and different and not use reference that may be used by someone else. So it's free, so we don't have to pay to have someone. What else? Yeah, and that this is possibly what got imprinted in me during like art school. Because if you wanted to do portraiture and you were spending money with materials, canvases, I remember doing my own paintings just because I wanted to save money for other stuff. But I did a lot of self-portraits because that was the immediate face or body that I had for free. So, and then I realized that by doing it, um, it wasn't just because it was accessible and immediate. I found that it's the best way to really recognize yourself. It's the best way to document yourself. In other words, what came first was the need to have something immediate, free, accessible that would allow me to do portraits without asking anyone, scheduling, begging or paying, or jumping into a different session with a model that was used by other people, or using a photograph at the time. So that was the best solution. But that opened up the door for me to realize that self-portraiture is a very potent and important way of doing what I said: documenting yourself, recognizing yourself, and also seeing yourself. Because sometimes we say, if you want to see something, you've got to paint it, because sometimes observation is very fleeting and it just allows us to grasp the essence of things. But when we apply observation to an object, we are opening it up. We're actually seeing it. We're actually understanding it. So because we are using as subjects ourselves, this also applies. I think there's something really powerful about really um, revealing our true selves and learning about ourselves. It sounds sort of like corny and abstract, but I truly believe that it's a fundamental subject, and that's why we like to bring it periodically, uh, because it does more than just being a reference. So thank you for joining again, because it's not flowers and birds that have a different appeal, but it's more important, or it does more of a, I would say, healing by confronting. Anyhow, so I'm gonna prep the palette, and at the same time, yeah, I just wanted to say about that first, and then one premise: the concept is the point, not the craft. And I've been writing this, and I have it on my notebook, and I like to read it to myself and to anyone who will watch this. The concept is the point, not the craft. We do it the opposite way. We think the craft it's the point and not the concept. And what happens when we think this way, when we think the craft is the point and not the concept? Well, it can take us that far, whatever the expression is. Because if you don't have a reason or a theme to paint, it's just gonna become, we're gonna become stuck in craft only, and our work ultimately will not have the power to connect at a human level. So yeah, the concept is the point, and that's why writing about what we do, for example, the little art statements that we draft when we send the emails, they just help us find meaning behind the technique or the time. Or yes, craft is the vehicle. So it is important. Without the vehicle, we would not be able to connect. But it's not the point. Craft is not the point. Concept is the point. So I have it written because, number one, this is very freeing. It just lifts so much weight off my shoulders. And I want to make sure that I have a weightless how should I say that? Oh, I'm using chromatic black, a weightless starting point. So I don't feel an obligation to make it look a certain way. I think that's very important. And I have, yeah. So when I feel a little bit less weight, I allow myself to be a little bit freer, and I can cut uh, strings that make me feel responsible for something. So, yeah, the concept is the point. So it just comes down to how we define painting, and the definition of painting has been changing throughout my life. And but we can always, because I have I see other creators and artists trying to find definitions about their language, and everything sort of like circles back in general terms to storytelling in a way, creating a narrative, creating a story. And we do it visually because we're visual artists, but some people do it in a different way. So I like this idea of like storytelling. So in storytelling, what's important is the story. Yes, we can just tell the story and we may be more or less successful. But if you don't have a good story, what's the point of telling it? Um, so same thing applies with painting. At some point, the craft will not inspire you to paint. And then it's when we have our infamous, or the artists have this infamous crisis, the reason why some people burn their paintings or they say they're never going to paint anymore. Why do you think that is? Well, they just hit a wall, and maybe the painting, the vehicle of their expression, doesn't fulfill the message they want to convey. As simple as that. And then they just blame the language. So anyhow, this morning I was just reading about Pauline Bodie, and I found something, Jen. I posted it on the stories, but she was part of a movement at the time in the 50s and 60s. It was called the Anti-Uglies. The Anti-Uglies. And when I heard that name, I was like, oh my gosh, I love that. So the Anti-Uglies were a group of people that protested ugly buildings in London.
Hilarious. Okay.
Yeah. So anyhow, so if you want to find that, and also, we talked yesterday about her posing in front of the paintings, performing, but I know that there are a couple of articles that talk about her activism in gender issues, her feminism. So I don't know if you want to find or search for something that writes about her being a very important point of reference for feminism at the time.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, perhaps because I didn't know about anti-uglies. So yeah, she was considered. There was an article at the, I forgot the name of the paper. They called her the secretary or the spokesperson for the anti-uglies. Uh, okay, I have my paint ready. I'm just gonna bring the big brush. I'm gonna start staining. I'll bring the other brushes already. So yeah, hopefully over time, um, we'll understand, or I have to repeat this myself many times in order to actually, my brain to really understand it, you know, that it's a story that matters, because sometimes we feel insecure about how we express ourselves, and we end up tilting the scale more towards craft than towards concept. Okay, so big brush. I'm just gonna make a mess out of this. I don't care. Oh, whoa, whoa, whoa. This was dry, dry, dry. So something dried up. And I'm gonna start with darks. All right, I'll make a huge mess because I want to go fast and then start painting. So I'm staining right now. I'm moving, or transitioning rather, from dry to wet. Think color fields, open spaces that are not fenced or corralled or parceled. And the purpose of this is to create a wet surface, seal the charcoal, prime the paper or the painting surface. I'm talking now about painting surface. I talked about format. Painting surface is the actual material we're going to apply pigment and paint onto. I'm using cotton paper. I like this because it doesn't have a lot of texture and it's not as absorbent as other surfaces, and I don't have to prep it, and it's easily storable, if that's a word, but I could just store it easily. We were talking with Sarah yesterday. We've done like over, in a matter of 12 months, I think more than 40 paintings. We have tons of paintings. So storage, this covers storage. We can just pile them all up and save them safely. But yeah, so that's those are the main things about staining right now. Color fields, I'm gonna try to repeat that to myself. Not contain, creating a wet surface so we can just do wet on wet layers. What else? Priming the paper, sealing the charcoal, removing the blankness of the paper. I'm gonna bring some gray on the background, very James Whistler. Someone, I was listening to someone speak about the stylistic references or inspiration for his work, and he brought up Whistler. I was like, oh, well, that's refreshing. So that was interesting. So this reminds me of the famous portrait of Whistler's mom, which traveled to the Norton Simon Museum, what, like 4 years ago? And this should have been the event of the year in LA, if you ask me. But I was lucky that I knew about it and I went. And yeah, where is that portrait right now? Is it in the Louvre or no? The Brits may have it. I don't know. Okay, just like cropping. Noisy brush strokes. So that's a good sign that we are moving fast with this step. I'm not using medium because it gets like too thick. I think I'm gonna save the easel. There's something cool about having the easel behind me. So I will keep the easel. Um, this is white, but I'm just gonna put some turpentine over it. Again, the idea is to do the wet on wet and to prime the paper. And then inside, I'll just use, oh, I don't have green. So what am I gonna do? So maybe the chromatic black doesn't give me green. No, it doesn't. But it's okay. I'll just do that, and then I'll change the color, this color, to a little bit more green later.
Julio Whistler's mother is at Musée d'Orsay
Oh my gosh. Wow.
as of August 2019. So it went from Norton Simon to the Clark Institute in Williamstown, Mass. And then it went to the Art Institute of Chicago. And then it went back to France.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
I went on a little tour.
I know.
Girlfriend saw the United States.
Wow, interesting. And you know how hard it is to, especially with for such an iconic painting, to do this tour. I mean, this must have been like millions of dollars, possibly, or hundreds of thousands.
And it's pretty big too, right?
It's huge. Yeah.
Yeah, I can't imagine.
Yeah.
The organization of that.
I know. Yeah, it takes years in the making, and then yeah, I'm surprised the French allowed it.
I know.
Sorry.
So funny. That would be the kind of job I would get, like mistakenly like apply for this really prestigious job at a museum and then be stuck with like the shipping of all the paintings.
Oh my gosh. Well, you know, it's a very important job, I should say.
It is, yes.
Cool. Thanks for that. Anything about her feminism or the anti-uglies, or?
So I found the anti-uglies, a big article about it. I haven't been able to do it then, but it is connected. I did post some pictures from movement.
If you come across any images of her or her work, I feel like we need more paintings by her.
Yes. Okay. So I have a similar painting to what you have of her, Pauline Bodie, with her painting 54321. It's the same like setup as the other picture that you have posted, but it's just in a different position.
Okay.
And then, oh yeah, actually, yeah, I think there are a few more. I'll post them.
Okay.
Okay, cool.
Thanks. Cool. Well, I'm just continuing with the wash. I'm being very careless about it. I'm using neutrals. I'm not using actual mixtures of color or anything like that. And here, it's an important time to recognize the expectations with this stage, with the wash. The expectations are not to make something that looks realistic or makes sense or it's recognizable or has a certain level of proportion or definition. None of that. The expectation here is to do a good job putting a layer on top of the painting surface that allows us to build on top of this. That's the expectation, and that's it. You know, I'm just gonna purposely continue to use the big brush for this, because I sort of like enjoy a certain level of rebelliousness approaching this, and not going back to taking ourselves too seriously. You know, not taking myself too seriously with this, and just doing a wash. And so, and that's about it. I think that's okay. I'm happy with this. as a wash. I know that's going to be done when I just cover everything more or less. And then even without much paint in my, in my brush, I just go around and then close some gaps just to give me the idea of things being um, things being, what should I say, stained. And I'm done. And I'm actually very happy. And this is an opportunity to say, we talked about when is a painting finished. And I have the most certain and what's the word? I think I'm just gonna find it. Uh, Allow me, because sometimes I think the word in Spanish. Uh, Let me see if I was gonna say something um, in Spanish, but pronounced in English. So sometimes, oh no, never mind. I love the word categorical. Yes, categorical. So that's the word. Resounding. Yes, answered. Answer that I have to the question: when is a painting finished? The answer is never. Period. A painting is never finished. So, and then what do we do about it? Just give everything up and then just move on to something else? No. So we have to redefine the meaning of the word finished. And I'm saying this because my wash is finished. So we have to kind of like break it down into different stages. So just because a painting is never finished, we shouldn't feel like we have to constantly work on it and then never feel like we can reap the rewards off of it. No, we hit several finished moments throughout the process, and this will not be done in 2 hours, and it will require a few days. But that doesn't mean I cannot finish things. I finished the wash, and I'm going to finish the first notes possibly. Who knows? And then I'm going to start the second notes, and I'm not going to finish those, obviously. But we can hit different moments in which we can say, yes, I finished the sketch. I finished the wash. I finished the first notes. So the concept of finished is the idea, or it involves the idea of finding reward or finding closure, I guess. Or no, it's not so much finding closure, but finding a reward. It almost feels like, okay, we can be proud of ourselves that we finished something. But in painting or creativity or creative processes, I feel like it's a never-ending process. Anyhow, all this diatribe to say that I'm finished with my wash, and I am just going to go to my first to the first notes. So I said staining or wash, which are the same thing. Color fields. First notes, color blocking. So that's how we associate the word with the stage, color blocking. So what I'm going to do is going darker to lighter, and I have an opportunity here to start doing two things. Study the color a little bit more, because a color block means use color to block. So because I'm not thinking about blending or drawing or details or anything like that, I have an opportunity to actually study the color. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to study the color. I'm going to block on the painting, on the wet surface. First notes, color blocking, darker to lighter. So medium brush, I'm going to switch from turpentine to the medium. And I'm going to do here. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead. I'm not going to use the cellophane yet. And I'm deciding I'm going to stick with a sepia vintage look of this printout from Kinko's. They're so bad at this Kinko's. They have a color copy machine, and the toner has been expired for months. So the first time I couldn't print, and I had to ask, oh, can you print this? I need this, blah, blah, blah. But then I learned that every time I go in to print something in color, I check the color printer and find about the cartridges. Well, it's been months and those cartridges have not been replaced. In a way, I love it because I know that's gonna piss some customers off. But at the same time, I'm like, oh, guys, change the toner. Anyhow, uh, I I'm working of having a more optimistic take on life. So I love that the universe gave me this sepia tarnished color palette, and I am going to make it the color reference. I'm not going to even bring the actual painting. So that's what I'm going to do. So I'm color blocking. I'm mixing colors already. So the idea here is study color means process color. Study color means getting your raw material, mixing it to create something that is different than the raw material. So that's what study color means to me. So I'm not just dipping my brush into the dabs of paint that I have and then just painting directly. I am mixing processing color already. So have that in mind, because otherwise it just looks like we haven't studied color. And depending on our intention, it almost looks like we've been lazy in studying the color. And I know that's a very charged word, but I do feel like I want to make sure that I treat the painting the way it deserves to be treated, creating its own unique palette for it. It's about respecting the integrity of the process. I'm not just going to paint with the colors that I have. I'm going to create a palette for this. And it's going to be for this only, and it's not going to be applicable to any painting before or after this. This will be the painting palette of this specific painting in time period. And it's a way of honoring the process, obviously, but also of putting the work in it. Studying the color, it's not just for to prove that we're good with color, or because that, it's a relative concept, what it means to be good with color. The definition is in the mind of the beholder, I guess. But for me, studying color, the implication is, and I'm bringing some aspects of second notes already here. So I'm not following the rules, but since we are among friends, I can tell you that I'm doing first notes and a tad of second notes here and there. So bringing different values. But anyhow, so yeah, creating a palette, processing the color, studying the color. This all happens with first notes. First notes is not just kind of like block and that's it. It's an opportunity to study what kind of like tones I'm gonna get, or I'm gonna use. Yeah, I on the artist statement, or the art statement rather, of this collection, I used part of a sentence from an article that feels completely corny, but it resonates with me, to become our own painting heroes. So yes, it's it almost feels like borderline part of like a toxic positivity approach, become your own painting hero. But it resonates because to me, um, it just shifts the focus to appreciating the process. So um, finding the heroism in ourselves, it's not about a narcissistic quest to feel like we're better than anyone else, uh, and we can do no wrong. um, Finding the hero in ourselves means to be generous and appreciative of the process, be trusting of what we do, continuously sort of like work on placate doubt, not eliminate it, because it will always be part of our of being an artist, to doubt about everything we do. But yeah, shift the focus on us. Another reason why self-portraiture is um, goes or transcends the subject, really becomes um, a vehicle for growth. All right, sorry, I'm just going to focus also on the actual technical thing. I'm just trying to study the color. I need purple, but I'm not going to use purple right now. I'm just going to bring a little bit of these colors because there are smaller images here. I'm sorry, smaller shapes. Um, it almost feels like I'm not really color blocking, I'm pixelating, but that's okay. The concept is that we're creating shapes with color. Okay. I probably need some blue, but I'll just use it later. Anyhow. I'm going to bring some blue. I'm going to bring some green. I'm going to start doing this. So what have you got, Jen? Anything interesting? Maybe?
The article about the uglies is a little hard, I think, to understand. Maybe just because I'm not familiar with London very much, so maybe that's why. I don't know. So it starts off talking about the Beatles, which is kind of strange, and it talks about this particular building that they went to appear somewhere, record somewhere. Anyway, then it starts into maybe it's just a poorly written article. Talks about Pauline Bodie and how she went to.
I know that's the same article that I.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, I'm glad you go over it because I found it confusing, a
Yes.
little bit interesting, but all over the place at the same time.
Agreed. I'm like,
Yeah.
wait, what am I reading exactly? So I'm skimming it as much as I can, but also
Yeah.
absorb something. I mean, interesting things, I guess. Maybe so. She went to an art school that was, very much male oriented, and so much so they didn't have bathrooms for women.
Oh
Um,
my gosh.
I know
That is interesting.
yeah. It's like 1950, 1955. So I don't know. That just seems like you would at that point, but whatever. Um, Maybe even 1960. So anyway, she was in a lecture with one of her professors. She was just outraged by these ugly buildings and kind of created a movement. And so she was the only female within this group that went to protest these particular buildings. And so I feel like that's why they called her the secretary, personally.
Oh my gosh. Okay, well that kind of like
Because
flips the omelette, friend, because it's
you
not.
know, yeah. I mean, when I looked at the names, I was like, oh, she's the only woman. And
Okay, good.
yeah,
Well, I'm so happy you're doing this because that's not.
right. I mean, I could be wrong, and it could, who knows, but that kind of
No,
makes
no.
sense.
No, it's the word secretary. I mean,
Right.
uh,
So I don't know. I mean, then the article kind of talks about like how she was stunning and how like maybe the dudes around her weren't as like handsome as she was beautiful. So odd. So then this, like I said, this article is really strange. So then at like one point while they're protesting this particular building, someone from the building comes out and they're saying, outrage over this ugly building, and this person says to them, but you're all so ugly yourselves. Just this like,
Oh my gosh.
and then she gets interviewed by a reporter and they're like, what's a pretty girl like you doing
Oh
here?
my gosh.
So then I'm like, okay, like I see kind of where this is going. And then I'm like, well, maybe I'll look into, her feminism. So I'm over to that now. Oh.
Well, listen, thank you, because if you skimmed this, I mean, I went like much faster. I saw the images. I tried to kind of like skip through all these like Beatles thing.
Yeah. That.
And then find out. And I wasn't sure when I saw the clip of on the paper. I wasn't sure if it was positive, or even if she wanted it to be like that, and or someone else kind of like used that image and created the headline, the
Sure.
secretary. But yeah, but I love the bits that you mention, especially the no restrooms in art school for women.
Yeah. Yeah.
I feel like
And
that's very telling, to say the least. And also, the fact that since she was the only pretty blonde, she was called the
Mhm.
secretary of the movement. Okay.
That's what it feels like to me. Yeah. And I think that she kind of threw, like in art school, it seems like she kind of like threw her hands up in the air, like, well, it's a man's world, just kind of accepting that. And yeah, and then
Wow.
mistreated because of her
Right.
looks.
Yeah.
But
It's one of the reasons why. One of the many reasons, and personally, I find her so fascinating. This sort of like
mhm.
not fitting in, and this, because everyone said, she was ahead of her time and everything. And I don't know, sometimes the expression being ahead of your time, I feel like there's a little bit of charge. Why are you ahead of your time?
Right.
Maybe if you look at the other way around, the rest is behind the time,
Yes,
she was just trying
exactly.
to be contemporary. So the word
Exactly.
ahead of your time is sort of like saying, you know what, I don't want to take responsibility. You go forward, or you kind of like, but we're going to stay right here. We're not going
Right.
to.
We're not going to match you. Yeah. Within that article, there's a picture of her daughter. Um,
Oh,
yeah, and it looks like it's just a few years before she passed, but before her daughter passed away. But she's standing in front of one of her paintings, so I posted that.
oh, good. Thanks, Jen.
Of course.
I think that's great.
Um, yeah, I'm just trying to find like something concrete. I mean, it seems okay. Let's see. Um, So it says someone at the forefront of this movement of feminism was Pauline Bodie. Bodie heralded mainstream feminism before we even had a good idea of what it was. That makes sense, and this was just one of many reasons why we should better know her name. Um, let's see. If I say the name Andy Warhol, chances are you're immediately flooded with images of a man decked out in striped shirts. You probably think of his shock of white hair, and you definitely think of his color-drenched screen prints. But what do you think when I say Pauline Bodie? Well, foremost, you should know that she was an incredibly talented, emotive, and exciting artist. She studied the art of stained glass at RCA, but she was also a gifted painter. Bodie was one of the founders of the British pop art movement, and at 23 took part in not only her first group show, but one of the first British pop art shows to be held in London. In fact, at the time, Pauline Bodie was Britain's only female pop artist. Being as clever as she was talented, Bodie used her position to address the bountiful, rampant sexism she and others faced, which she did both in her work and by her own assertion. And while we're getting down to the list of reasons you should recognize Pauline Bodie, you might also be interested to know she was the woman responsible for bringing Bob Dylan to Britain. Oh my.
Oh.
um, let's see. She was a skilled artist with an interesting and ardent point of view whose pieces showcase her subversive opinion of the world. She was brave and unafraid, beautiful and charismatic, and her beauty was an easy out for those who would deem to demean and forget her. Bodhi, in a fate which is still madly familiar, was often reduced to just a pretty face. It is true, she was stunning, but she was stunning for more than just her face. She was radiant, and even sprawled on a bed with a cigarette dangling from her fingertips, she looked like she knew something you didn't. To me, at least, she looks thoughtful and busy of mind. And then
Nice. Good.
yes, she remains to be one of the most important female artists in modern history. She shattered glass ceilings.
Good.
Her never faltered or drifted off path. And then it talks about, oh, this is interesting. She compared and contrasted men in the way that she and so many other women were pitted against one another. And she confronted the position of women in art and pornography just as fervently as she had done all those years earlier. But all of this, the great big bright life that Pauline lived, she only lasted 28 years. And then it goes on to talk about her death.
Good. I think that's a good. It's a good piece to sort of like shift the focus and understand that um, she was more than what other people thought of her. Obviously.
Right, right.
Um, good. Yeah. No, I mean, thanks. No, that was very good, Jen. Yeah, I think that's important also to realize.
I'll attach the article. There's one, for some reason, her paintings aren't downloading in this article for me, but I'll attach what does, and then I'll attach the article to it
Okay.
so you guys can pull it up and hopefully
Okay.
it works. And
Okay. One of the things that I didn't do yesterday, that self-portrait that I showed first, just like her face that I love possibly the most of her pieces, I didn't find information about that when it was painted. I don't know if there are a few of these images online, so it's not a very rare painting, but I wonder if you can find out details about that painting.
sure.
I don't know how much you'll be able to find. I would also love to find, or if you can, where it is,
Yeah.
which museum, because I think it's in the National Portrait Gallery in London, but I'm not sure. So I think it would be, yeah, I don't know if you can.
Is it the one where she's has like her necklace in her mouth?
No, it's just just the painting.
Oh, yes, yes, yes. I see it
Yeah,
now. Okay, got it.
like really, I wouldn't say impressionistic, but kind of like classic.
Yep, I see it.
Just her face.
Yeah, I'll try to find it. Is it? It's a self-portrait, yes?
Yeah, it's a self-portrait, just her, like super sad, or yeah, just looking at the viewer. Yeah, no narrative, no nothing. It's just her face. And yeah, I just copy. I mean, I downloaded it and then copied and stuff, but I never looked at when she painted it, because I know that there was she did a self-portrait of her, which going back to the idea of self-portrait, and this brings me back to the French impressionist Berthe Morisot, and that self-portrait that she did of her with her painting palette with purples on her face and yellow on the background, super assertive. Yeah, so I'm just saying this because when she studied stained glass, there is a portrait, a self-portrait that she did with stained glass. I don't know if you can find that, Jen, but it's also easy to find. Yeah.
Yeah. I found the self-portrait. It's from 1955. Um, but I'll see if I can find where it is now. I've only been able to find one painting, and it's at the Tate. Or, I've only been able to find where one painting is, I think, is what I'm trying to say.
You know, retrospectives of her body of work have been very recent. It's not like she's been shown for a very long time. This is not like something we just discovered right now and we didn't know about it. I mean, she's still a kind of like obscure
Mm-hmm.
painter by mainstream standards.
Right. Yeah. Let me see what I can find.
So I'm still doing while you do this, I'm still doing first notes, and I just studied the color of the skin. And what I did, I used the cellophane. And so something technical, very important right here, something about craft, which is not the point, but it's the vehicle. So we need to have like a strong vehicle, I guess, to drive the concept. When we make flesh tones and we use either ecru or maybe yellow ochre, because of the pigments that we're using, which are mineral based, which means are from nature, there, I noticed that there's always a dominance of yellow on the skin tones. Um, because we've done portraits this past year, many portraits, this was a recent discovery. I've never reflected on it before that, before 2020. But I understand and I see now that the reason why this is something that I consider, it's because I've been studying, using this, studying the color, doing first notes, and realizing that anything that has a little bit of yellow, mineral yellow pigment in it will create a yellow cast on the skin. So I always, number one, try to recognize that that's part of the mechanics of the pigment and not has nothing to do with color itself. And number two, I always make it a point to counterbalance that yellow with some pink or some burnt sienna, something reddish or pinkish, in order to lower it. So see if that happens. If you have skin tones, and step back, compare it, see if you are appreciating that yellow cast on the flesh tone, and then perhaps bring some, another great color, as we also discovered, is the quinacridone. Is the violet quinacridone? That's the best color for creating warmth on skin tones, regardless of the pigmentation, by the way, or I should say, yeah, pigmentation. Not the alizarin, but the quinacridone. There's so many. Quinacridone violet. Yeah, violet. The quinacridone violet. Um, um, uh, and so that's what I'm doing right now. So still first notes, time wise, yeah. So 45 minutes. We're just gonna extend it a little bit more. And I feel like with possibly I'm being a little bit ambitious here, but I think I'm just gonna have enough um, time to do first notes, which is gonna be fine as long as I feel I finished first notes. Then I could just have the painting ready um, for second notes. I'm gonna bring the skin tone and then color blocking. So to recap or to summarize or to remind ourselves, we are on first notes. I am on first notes. And I associate first notes with color blocking. I associated uh, staining with color fields in order to kind of like make a distinction that feels sort of like visual, using words. Studying the color, and since I am blocking, the nature of blocking with color itself has to do with uh, the, uh, the shape of the block. So I am drawing also the contour of those shapes, or rather redrawing. So what comes first, let me just kind of like try to put this in order. What comes first is the color blocking on this stage. But the color blocking allows me to study the color and also redefine the shapes of the blocks. So I'm working on edges. So that's a word I wanted to find. I'm working on edges. This sort of like conversation about self-portraiture and why I consider it so important. And I hope I'm able to translate or facilitate the actual importance of self-portraiture in our own practice. So I think that if there's anything that would make me happy would be that the idea of that subject being conceptually extremely valuable. If you notice, when we talk about painters from the past, we see body of work, blah, blah, blah. Or when you Google something, when you Google a painter, there's always, let me kind of like find the expression. There's always, the self-portraits always come first. You type whatever artist you want. If they've done a self-portrait, it will pop up first. Even with this stupid algorithm thing that is trapping us today. But even with that, something that it's not human, that comes up first. There's extreme value and importance in a painted self-portrait. There's something really powerful about the artists painting themselves. Yeah, so that's why going back to what I said about this topic or subject may not be aesthetically, appealing, but what you're doing, you guys, is it's going to be monumental and really important. We may not find the value of this now. Let's kind of like be also realistic. But that doesn't mean like it's not valuable. Next time you look at a self-portrait, try to catch yourself thinking how you feel. Simple as that. Take a moment to catch yourself thinking the way you feel. Are you personally more impressed? Are you touched by or emotionally touched by the fact that that's the actual painter making a statement? I feel like that helped me understand seeing other people's self-portraits and stuff, the actual importance and value of this. Anyhow, I just said that because in the presentation, I said that's my favorite painting of her. That sort of like vulnerable, intimate self-portrait. Yeah, I just I love that. She painted a butt and she posed in front of her paintings, and yet the most intimate painting for me, it's that self-portrait. Even the self-portrait with a stained glass, which if you find, Jen, you can upload. It's a really interesting one. How do you
just found it? That's so funny.
Yeah, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting in that it's stained glass. I mean, it's incredible. And I love the detail work on the clothing. But yeah, and it's so. Sorry, go ahead.
No, because this is good. Because I think we're not going to reveal the portrait. I'm not going to share it until later. But Yeah. So first of all, the fact that she's using a medium that we associate with religious beliefs or religion and stuff, and she's doing a self-portrait, just that alone.
Right.
And then what is she, how is she depicting herself? What is she wearing? Is there any object or accessory?
It looks like she's wearing. Okay, hold on. It's kind of hard to tell, honestly. So it looks like she's wearing. Well, I thought she was wearing flowers, but hold on. Let me
Right.
get
I think there's something there. No? Is there something?
It's funny how one you'll see I'm putting them side by side, but there's one with the light shining through it, which makes it a lot clearer, and then there's another where it's not, and it's
Okay.
difficult. Okay, so it looks like she's got one hand kind of across her chest, almost like saying the Pledge of Allegiance or something, and then she has another hand raised. Um, and then her fingers turn a different color, which is interesting. So she has like her like skin color on her hands, and then once it gets the hand that's raised, once it gets to her thumb and her forefinger or her pointer finger, it changes color. And then on her sweater, it looks very floral, but the work in each little piece of glass is incredible. But there's much more expression in the painting, and it does remind me of the Bert Merceau.
Right.
Yeah, so much.
Yeah. No, it's just when you do a self-portrait, it's not just I possibly should kind of like back up my question, what is she wearing? Because uh, I should rephrase it and say that everything you choose when you do a self-portrait has meaning. Nothing is left at random. And
Okay. I take back what I said, Julio. I think she's actually holding a bouquet of flowers on her chest.
okay.
And that is what I'm looking at.
Okay, because that is extremely symbolic and meaningful. And again,
Yes.
it's how you build. When you do a self-portrait, and we talked about seeing ourselves, sometimes with the most mundane choices, if we look a little bit deeper, we can reveal what we like, how we identify ourselves, what we think of who we are, and how we present ourselves to others. So to me, these sort of like choices, the fact that she's portraying herself with stained glass and choosing a specific movement of her body, including how much of her upper body is included in the stained glass, which is not just from neck up, it's a little bit lower, correct?
It's a little lower, yeah.
Yeah. None of this is random. Even it may be subconscious and not really rationalized. None of it is random. Um, so yeah, anyhow, so that was the reasoning behind, when I said, what is she wearing? Because, that's a very inappropriate question.
No, but I understand. And now, yeah, now that I look at it again, because I was like, oh, what an interesting sweater. It's not. She's holding a bouquet of flowers against her chest. And then she's wearing this like kind of like red, this beautiful sweater, I guess. I don't know. I just keep thinking it's a sweater. And then she has one eyebrow raised.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
yes. I mean, yes, in the sense that this is going deeper.
Yeah, exactly. It's at the National Portrait Gallery
Oh, okay.
in England. Yeah.
No, this I love, because sometimes when there's this plea, because ultimately this is what I imagine I'm trying to bring like a universal, and I'm going to go back to the technique, but I'm trying to bring this universal appeal that some iconic figures have, that it feels like their lives are a plea to uh, uh, become visible, but they're always invisible. There's this sort of like, you know, I exist, this is not who I am, this is who I am, and then their life gets cut short, and immediately it creates this massive following of people that they project themselves um, onto that person's life. And in her case, that was her case when her life um, uh, was cut short because of the disease of cancer. There was almost like a cult following. And I feel
Mm-hmm.
in a way, it's like a projection of a lot of people of saying, you know what, I want to become visible too. And I totally get that she was misread and misinterpreted. And it happens with every sort of like iconic figure. I feel that their lives are cut short and they lived outside of the box, or as people say, they were ahead of their time, which is an indictment of themselves rather than just, um, you know, uh, singling out them as being different. Anyhow, you know,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, the idea of the eyebrow and the idea of like mixing languages, the idea of the flowers, these are bold statements, you know,
Yeah, absolutely.
if you, yeah, if you,
Yeah. And
sorry.
it really goes to show you too of like how quickly, I mean, this is I think a broader thing, but how quickly people will just kind of pass over a painting without really examining it, you
Right.
know, because I was, you know, just, I mean, forced is like the worst word. Just because I was, you know, like really taking my time to understand it, to communicate it better, you know, to you guys, I saw much more, you know. But as a viewer, I mean, like anything, I guess, it's just interesting how quickly we can make assumptions and move on when there could be so much more there. Some lessons in there, I guess.
Cool. Yeah, totally. Yeah. So awesome. Well, we're gonna kind of like show the painting. Actually, yeah. So maybe in a little bit before you leave,
Okay.
just to kind of like open up, and then yeah, because I think it's gonna be interesting. So yeah, I'm working on first notes. I'm adding a few changes here and there. And then I have to decide first notes on the background before I move to second notes. All right, so that's what I'm gonna do. First notes on the background. First of all, I need to bring more white. And so it's been an hour and a half. And now I'm bringing like full titanium white to just kind of like block out. I know titanium white is a hard color to apply as a layer because I know that I'm gonna change the shape, and then it's gonna be hard to manipulate it if it has titanium white. But at this point, I just want to place this first note. Um, yeah, and also right here, just to block it out. Again, uh, appealing to that idea of finishing a stage. A painting may never get finished, but I can achieve different finished moments throughout the whole process. And that's what I'm trying to do with this, kind of like find this moment or this finished stage rather than finished. She reminds me, or the this sort of like live cut short, and a lot of people sort of like having a cult like following. And I'm not going to mention any dudes because there are plenty, but there's a singer called Nico. I think she was American. I'm not sure.
Mm.
And she died in the stupidest way. She was riding a bicycle in Ibiza, and then she fell. She hit her head, and then she died.
Oh my gosh. That's
Yeah, but she
awful.
was a singer. She was a singer and a poet, and she, I mean, people loved her.
Yeah, like Selena.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, that's horrible. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh, she still has a huge.
Yeah. And what was the hip hop singer that died in a plane accident, a small plane? Um,
Female?
yeah, yeah. She was so beautiful. Try. She had a song said like, you know, you need to try again or something. You need to rock the boat was another song. Um, Aliyah, I think it was Aliyah.
Yes, Aaliyah. Yes,
Oh,
exactly. Oh,
I
so
mean,
22.
I'm sorry, 22. Yeah.
22.
When I remember when she died, I was like, oh my gosh, you know.
Yeah.
And for a very long time, even a lot of, not many, but some painters, you know, who had a really affected grief or grieving moment was, okay, you're gonna laugh, you guys. Hopefully, this will be recorded for forever. What's the singer that sings "Get the Freak On"?
Ooh, get your freak on. Ooh, get your freak on.
Yeah,
Let me
what's
look at it.
okay? I'm glad that I'm not the only one not knowing. So they were friends, and boy, I
The
mean,
band called Rare Essence.
no,
No, okay. Just kidding.
a hip hop artist, a singer.
Right. So while we're talking about that,
Yes, yes.
Darlene wanted me to say that Nico was German.
Oh my gosh, I didn't know that. Wow. Okay.
Oh, Missy Elliott, duh.
Yes. My
Yes. Oh my
gosh,
gosh.
I feel so
We're
embarrassed.
dumb.
No.
We fully admit that we're silly, you guys.
No. Oh no. Um,
I love how I sang it and still couldn't.
no, no.
Oy.
I feel better.
Anyway,
Not that I'm happy that you
no,
got a
this is
different
why
answer.
I could never do a game show. I don't have that like any timed game, forget it. Like I could eventually come up with it, but timed way.
No, no, no. We're here together, so I'm glad we're just doing this together.
Me too.
When Aaliyah died, Missy Elliott for years, she always in her concerts and in her public appearances, she always mentioned Aaliyah's
Aw.
name and what a great loss was for I mean, for her personally, but for everybody. And I
Yeah.
always felt like, oh my gosh, you know, it was really beautiful. So,
Yeah.
anyhow, there are examples, if I could say, use the word example, of iconic female public figures
Yeah.
that have had their lives cut short, and they have created this universal feeling of you know, people projecting their emotions um, to them or to their death or to their passing, that
Right.
and creating this kind of like cultish or cult-like, I wouldn't say cultish, cult-like following, not just the dudes.
Right. Which you're right. There are so many. I could name like 10 right now. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, listen, you know, respect, but
Right.
it's important to kind of like say, you know, it's not just them.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. 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 Totally. Respect. I like that.
Yeah.
Respect.
Whatever. um, but yeah. Oh, well, we're just gonna have, you're gonna miss this because we're gonna have a great conversation later with, I can't wait for Darlene to tell us about Nico and stuff, and I don't know, things like that. Or I'm gonna ask.
Yeah.
But anyhow, it's good that we just do this, not just because of self-portrait and stuff, and the art history component also. But yeah, I was really looking forward and to this, and hopefully this will be a perfect reason to illustrate how important what we're doing. I mean, this kind of like sounds okay. Well, let's just something silly or funny. No, this is like truly important, if you ask me. All right, so I'm just doing first notes, and I said the background. Oh yeah, so the background. I was just like, all right, let me just kind of like bring some colors and see what I can do with the background. Okay, good. I'm just gonna bring the tiles of the bathroom. I'm just gonna simplify, use simplification. And yeah. To kind of like bring this idea of something in the background without being accurate to the architecture. I love the tutorial this week and how we were talking about balance, but also how we talked about the negative space and the positive space. How are they related? What kind of like connection are we gonna decide to feature? Is it just gonna be a flat, a negative space that's gonna define the focal points? Are we gonna bring a certain illusion of space? Are we gonna treat it in a pictorial way as a painting inside of a painting? There's so many options that we have with negative space, and how our decisions are going to either enhance our focal points, expand the narrative, become the perfect support for the positive space or the positive elements. The negative space is so crucial. It's so important. It's not just, you know, a block and then that's it. Going back to this idea of, in fact, I see on the photograph this similarity between the botanical greens of the painting and this sort of like sagey grays jade green on the background. So I'm gonna play with that. I didn't see this earlier, but I think I like this correlation in narrative between both greens. It's a different kind of green. Oh yeah, it's happening. I'm doing it. I love this discovery. I think this is a good idea. And okay, good time. So I'm gonna bring, I'm actually gonna bring the stained glass so we can relish on the reveal. Did you find anything about the actual painting, the self-portrait, where it is, or
Yeah, I'm still looking. It just, yeah.
there's
I
not
don't
much about
know.
it, right?
Yeah,
Ah,
it's odd.
um, oh yeah, it's just really beautiful. All right, we're gonna show you the stained glass self-portrait. This is a stained glass self-portrait. So yeah.
Okay, Julio, it might be. She's now seeing her first career retrospective at the Wolverhampton Art Gallery, but that was in 2013. So I doubt that it's still there. So
Okay.
it might just be a part of her estate, the painting.
Okay. Okay.
Yes, so there's two versions I put of it. So this is the much clearer one, and then the other one is off the
Yeah.
modern, or sorry, off the National Portraits
Okay.
website, which is
Yeah.
horrible.
I mean, that's probably, yeah, what it looks like. And this is probably
Right.
saturated. But
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah, or with like increased contrast. But another element of and something remarkable that corroborates whatever that's pronounced accurately, the idea of hands being almost like a secondary portrait.
Mhm.
There's a hand up in the air.
Yeah.
Um, is it waving? Is it
Changes color. Yeah. Oh,
is it
yeah.
blessing? I mean, there's almost like this idea of sainthood, the way I read it personally. Uh,
Right.
Sainthood, blessing, religious icon. So it's interesting how she portrays herself with one hand, just doing something that feels very
Mhm.
spiritual, combined with the fact that the eyes seem to not look straight. So that's another element that I possibly recognize. There's something that she's looking at someone else, or she's looking
Mm.
at something else. She's not interested in looking at us directly. Um,
Well, too, how the glass is on her mouth. That for, I don't know how the glass works, but for
yeah.
the reason that she chose to kind of have this, the piece it break, right where the opening of her mouth would be.
Boom. Absolutely. As a marionette,
Yeah, yeah,
almost sort of like
silenced. Yeah,
ventriloquist,
right.
or the object of a ventriloquist. The fact that someone else pulls the string.
Well, those strings, interesting.
Amazing, amazing insight. Yeah. And then the flowers, the still life within, and the color red is a
Mm-hmm.
choice.
And
Uh,
like fiery red. It's
right.
has a
Yeah.
lot of value in there.
A primary color, very
Mm-hmm.
strong. Um, and it's on her clothes. Yeah. I just feel like, we could just unpack this even further and further. But um, there's something really powerful about this self-portrait
Yeah.
that goes beyond just beyond the craft, going back to concept is the point, craft is the vehicle. So talk about concept here. I think there are so many things that express already her identity at the time. And yeah, I like actually I like this even better. It's
Mm-hmm.
like with the color completely gone. There's something.
Yeah.
The fragmentation shows even more.
Exactly. It's more haunting. Julio, when we painted in the Poets Corner in Forest Lawn, and James was telling us about the difference between the stained glass from California and the stained glass from Italy. Do you remember what the difference was in the way it was put together?
It was the glass in Italy. It was conforming the actual composition of
Mm-hmm.
the artwork, whereas the glass mosaic pieces in California were just sort of like blocks.
Uniform.
Yeah,
Right.
and then
Right.
things were painted on them.
Right. So this is more of the European or
Yeah.
Italian way.
Yep.
Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Interesting.
Absolutely. The hand, the hair, the neck, the
Mm-hmm.
face. Totally. Totally. It's not just a painting over glass. Let's put it this way.
Right.
Stained glass.
It's chosen.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah. Very good point. Good point, Jen. I mean, the work we can just go over, but the work is just amazing.
Oh,
Love this painting so much.
me too. And I love it with the diptych of. I mean, I don't know if it's supposed to be a diptych,
The
but
landscape, whatever.
too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Incredible,
Yeah.
and it goes back to what you said about her feminism, and then
Yeah.
kind of like uh, pulling the narrative away
Yeah.
from something. Really cool.
Yeah, I love this one, and especially next to the one next to it.
Oh my gosh.
So that
Grant.
one is It's a Man's World 1. And, you know, it's science, it's, you know, it's music, it's aviation, it's architecture, it's, you know, all of this innovation,
It's look Kennedy, you know,
culture, Kennedy,
assassination.
yeah, Einstein, you know, I think,
Wow.
yeah.
And a
And then,
bullfighter. I mean, seriously.
yeah, masculinity.
Right.
And then, you know, of course, we're reduced to this,
Yeah.
the man's vision,
Yeah.
yeah,
Male
the
gaze.
seductress. Yeah.
Wow. Amazing. I love this painting too. You know, it's so
Yeah.
not, and again, a landscape, you know, collaged. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
painted, but yeah. Wow. I love these portraits with the geometric words. This is amazing. I mean, you talked, you look at
Yeah.
Amy Sherrill, right? That she painted the portrait of Michelle Obama.
Mm-hmm.
Look at this. It's just like same desaturation and then
Yep.
the addition of these patterns.
Right.
It's just so cool.
It's amazing that's a painting. Like that alone, like the just the, even like her technical side is
Right.
just so strong. Yeah.
Yes. Absolutely. No,
At
she,
28 at the, you know, oldest.
no. Yeah. And this was towards
Such,
the end of her life, actually, because I know that the portrait of the uh, bum,
yeah,
it
that's the
was
last.
towards the end. Yeah.
Yeah,
Last painting from
last
1960.
painting.
Wow.
No.
Um, anyhow, you know, I'm deciding right now. I'm just gonna cancel, if I can use the word, a little bit more the Andy Warhol narrative. So I'm just
Yeah,
gonna
there you
push
go.
it down,
Right.
and I think you know, I'm just gonna make sure that it doesn't come out of my mouth immediately, because I feel like, you know, she did all this before,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah.
She
Anyhow,
did. And without the, dare I say, like cronies of Andy Warhol too,
yeah,
to elevate him in
right,
whatever way that looks.
right, true, true.
She was the
How's your
mere
time?
secretary.
I know. Yeah. Talk about that
Boy.
word. Seriously.
But yes, I think with that I need to leave you guys. I'm so sorry, but I can't wait to look at the work after
Thanks,
we're
Jen.
done. Thanks, you guys. Okay, happy Friday, everyone. I'll see you soon. Bye, guys.
Bye. See you later. So anyhow, I'm just gonna take this last 15 minutes, and I am going to create. I'm still working on first notes, you guys. I'm not. I don't feel guilty. Let's put it this way, because I feel like this was all important and contributing to how we look at our work. So it may not be. Let's sort of like categorize it as painting theory, if you will. Maybe not like a actual painting craft, but important nevertheless. So I'm just blocking this, and then I'm going to start deciding about, and I'm going to bring some blue about um, second notes. I'm still on first note. So this is, I feel like I've done a lot, but it doesn't look like it, but it's okay. I try to bring positive terms to define my evolution. I wouldn't say progress, but yeah, progress. Why not use the word progress? Uh, yeah, everyone. It feels like everyone talks about the imposter syndrome these days. You know, it's in everyone's mouth. Everyone talks about that. I still I know I get it, but I'm gonna be honest. It's still not super clear. I feel like people use it without really knowing what it actually means. But I'm just bringing this up because the fact that I had a hesitation to use the word progress instead of evolution, to me, it's an example of that concept of imposter syndrome, like um, not giving myself credit by changing the word progress for evolution, because I think the word progress is positive and the word evolution is a little bit more neutered. So, anyhow, so that's what I'm still doing. Not being super careful. I'm relying on observation, flickering back and forth. I haven't studied the color a lot, but using the cellophane, but I did use it on the actual skin tone just because I knew it was going to have like a dominance of yellow. I love the fact that there's the painted bouquet of flowers back there. So maybe instead of using a combination of paint with white in it, I'm just gonna bring some dark notes because I feel I don't wanna paint the full floral still life, but I do love the daisy right there, this little tiny small babushka instead of the several babushkas of the painting. Okay, so one final touch for first notes will be this lovely, wow, that's a lot of color. This lovely purpley note caused by the wrinkles of the sweatshirt that I'm wearing. Maybe a little bit like this. Okay, so I'm gonna make more sense of it later, but that is going to be it for now. That's gonna be it for now. A little bit of darker notes right here, and that's gonna be it. Okay, so yeah, that works. I love those little touches. And okay, I can officially and going back to the word categorically say I am finished with first notes. Oh my gosh, yeah, it's good to be finished with something. So I achieved several conclusions, closures, and finishes, I guess. The sketch, the wash, and the first notes. I'm gonna take. I'm gonna drink some juice, take a moment to breathe, and then I'm just gonna start with second notes. And at least what I'll do with second notes, try to define them so they are recorded. And if anyone watches this later again or for the first time, they have a direction, hopefully a direction to take moving on. And also, I'm going to see if I can start second notes in one part of the painting. But yeah, I'm happy with the stage. I'll do a quick assessment. I feel like we always talk about gravitating or ending up rather than gravitating, because we don't do it like willingly. It just happens. With portraits and figures and beings, there's a sense of rigidity and totemic, monolithic posture. And I feel like the head needs to be tilted a little bit, especially the eyes are way too horizontal. So I already see some structural elements that I need to change because there's a very static, predictable, almost like heavy alignment with the eyes that it's not giving me enough interest, I would say, or movement. So I already see that, but I'm happy with the tilt of the shoulders. You could see that there is something behind that, it's not even. And I love the forearm that it's in front of the sweatshirt, and this one doesn't have a hand. So this creates a certain rotation. So I'm liking this. I'm liking this. Compositionally, I'm okay, and I know what I need to address. But let's just move on to officially to second notes. So staining or washing, color fields. First notes, color blocking. Second notes, I like to bring the word pixelation. Pixelation is grainy, uh, broken down small particles, I guess, of paint. Um, so that's sort of like the next step forward from color blocking, which is dictated by shape, to pixelation, in which I can open up the spectrum of values. Second notes is when I start blending values within a color block or a first note or a shaped color. So what changes here is maybe also the size of the brush, although I already changed it, but perhaps, that could be something to reflect on. But the idea here is that right now I have to pick one section to start with. So I can be more intentional with first notes. I know that I have to color block everything, and I follow from darker to lighter. But with second notes, I can decide what area I'm going to start first. So I invite you to reflect on those compositional questions that we ask on Tuesday and also last week. Uh, how many visual planes do you have on your painting? What's the visual plane that's going to have the most focus? How are the elements arranged within each visual plane? And which one it's going to be the most predominant element in that visual plane? My point is that I'm not going to treat every single part of the painting the same way, because I want to convey the idea of intention and also give more direction to the viewer. So in that sense, the background's going to have like more of a underdeveloped area, that I know for sure. The easel right here, I'm going to be very careful not to develop too much, because that's definitely a different visual plane. So if I do this painting right here of the flower, unless I really want this to be the core or the keyhole of my painting, it's going to come forward a lot. And then I have to decide, out of those two, do I want them to have the same definition? I am I am gravitating, I think I can use this word right now. I am gravitating towards making more um, density of detail on the actual portrait than on the painted portrait. And it could go either way. I'm a little bit conflicted, because there's something really cool about making the painted portrait on the painting more detailed than the actual live portrait. So I find that playful and interesting. But I'm just going to go for this location first. So look how long it's taken me to actually decide which location it's going to take the most, the first and the most second notes. So I'm going for this one. Okay. All right. So now that I decided, I'm just going to go back to darker to lighter, from darker to lighter. So because this feels very black, okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to study the actual color. So it's a little bit, I'm using chromatic black and maybe a tad. Yeah, I think that's a good idea. A little bit of um, The ecru, because it's more harmonious. It's a nice harmonious color. I'm gonna work on this maybe a couple more minutes, but the idea is to go darker to lighter. I am doing second notes. I have reflected on all those compositional elements. I'm not just gonna paint everything the same way. I want this to have a clear direction. I want to direct the viewer's eye as much as possible on this painting. And that's why I chose this first. Nothing is random. Even if we don't put our thinking into it, it will come forward as intentional from our own subconscious. So have that in mind. Um, Also, I want to start defining the shape that I created on the first notes a little bit further using the background, the negative space, as a way to um, draw the positive space. So this is a little bit darker. I like the fact that there's a little bit more darkness here. Okay, so I think that's working well. I need to shape this a tad, so I'm gonna shape this. And what I'm gonna do right now, okay, so what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna pause this. It may not be enough example for second notes on this because I just barely did second notes on the hair and I need to do it on the overall and I need to change the structure. But I hope the thought process provided enough of a template on how to approach this stage. Just think of what's important, what needs the most density of detail. You have to deconstruct the actual scene of your painting in order to understand how you want to direct the viewer. Because it's not about going from shape A to shape B to shape C. This is sort of like not the right approach, I would say. Be considerate about the concept. All right, we're gonna take 10 minutes break. I'm gonna pause the recording and then at 1:10, we're gonna reconvene. I'm gonna take a picture, upload it so we can just talk about it. Please do the same, regardless of the states that you're at. Doesn't matter if you just did one line. And then we can just discuss and chat more about how you felt, if there's anything that point of view that changed perhaps in regards to like self-portraiture or anything interesting about her work that you value now more. And also we'll talk about more about Nico perhaps, which I love. 1:10, no, 1:15. I'll just be back. Bye.